Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining. I think we are still waiting for a couple more minutes until we have more quorum. All right, I think we're at 17 participants. That's good. So let's probably get started in a minute now. I think if we hit 20, we start faster. Let's just do that. Uh,
I think till then, I'll just thank the placement cell of Gargi College for giving us this opportunity to deliver this session to the students and help the students understand and come across different myths and different probably profile mistakes that people come across while applying to higher education. I think, Priyash, let's start and we can have people join in during the session
yeah,
as well.
absolutely. All right, cool. So, hello, everyone. My name is Preyash. I am the co-founder of Lilacbuds and also the Chief Technology Officer. Today's session is something that the main agenda for me to kind of talk about here is of course the myths surrounding higher education abroad, but more importantly to leave you guys with a feeling that why this is relevant, why this is important. I guess many of you aspire to go abroad to study, for whatever course that comes up next in your career. A lot of students want to go for an MBA, some want to go for a master's, and what is the right fit? Why a certain course? We'll cover some of that data points, but also more of the emotional journey, some of the actual data points around the timelines. So we'll cover a whole bunch of aspects today over the course of the next 40 minutes or so, along with a little bit about how my company helps aspirants get into some of the best programs globally. And post that, we'll be having an open answer session. So probably after 40-45 minutes, we'll be going into question and answers, and that is where you guys can have very specific questions that you would like us to cover. We'll go into those as well, right? So Mohak is my head of growth. He is the head of growth at Lilacbuds, and he is the one coordinating with all with the folks at Gargi. So he'll be tandeming with me, especially when it comes to the Q&A session. All right. So with that, moving on into the first section of the myths about higher education abroad. Right. So we'll go into that. The first one is, let's talk about money, because I think one of the biggest worries, one of the biggest challenges that a lot of students face is that international education does cost a lot of money, and that makes it out of contention for me, right? And there are four aspects of that we will cover. So, what is the average cost of studying abroad that is incurred today for, let's say, a bachelor, for a master's program? Let's just take a master's program. The average cost for a master's program is anywhere between $30,000 to $35,000 per year, depending on the country that you choose. It could vary tremendously. For example, Switzerland being one of the most expensive countries to go to, there would be much cheaper countries as well. The more offbeat names in Asia. For example, if you wanted to go to Malaysia or Indonesia to study, that would be much cheaper as well. So it just depends. But I would say, given the most popular destinations, which is the US, UK, Australia, Singapore, Canada, you're looking at about $30,000 to $35,000 of average tuition fee for some of the best programs out there. Now, that number, when you convert to today's dollar terms, converted to rupees, that is somewhere in the vicinity of 25 lakh rupees per year. Yes, that number sounds astonishingly large to most people, saying that, hey, this is not, I would have not paid for my total education so far, 25 lakhs. How am I expected to shell that kind of money out? Okay, so let me add a little more rub it in a little bit further is that the 25 lakhs doesn't include the cost of living in that country, which could add up another $10,000 or so to your total education. So if you're thinking that, hey, how am I ever going to spend close to 40,000 plus dollars per year for that? That's ridiculously expensive. I cannot afford it. That is where the next point comes in, because where we generally fall short, there are ways and opportunities where the institutes themselves are looking for a variety in their cohort. They're looking for people who come from different backgrounds, who come from a lot of different experiences and add value to their cohort. And they, of course, want your money for sure, no doubt about that. But at the same time, they value your experiences, they value the inputs. And if you have done something really good, either got a great score academically, done some really good extracurriculars, have some good leadership skills to talk about in your application, the chances of a scholarship are really, really bright. And that starts taking that cost of $40,000 lower, 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 depending on what you land up with. So there are students who can land up with, very low scholarships, 10,000, I mean, sorry, 10% of the fee to as much as the full 100% of the tuition fee also being covered in certain institutions. Addition to that, there are options like certain colleges have, you know, what I would say is that certain colleges have tie-ups with Indian corporate houses. For example, the Ambanis, the Tatas, they all have scholarships going on, and you apply to those scholarships in order to get tuition waivers in some of the top colleges globally. This is not for the lower ranked colleges. These scholarships are only for the higher ranked colleges that you might end up applying to, right? So that is the factor that the scholarship can take off, let's say anywhere between 10% to 100% of education. That's a big reason to even apply. And depending on the kind of program that you're applying to and what your own skill set is, you would probably land up, you could probably land up, I would say, getting anywhere between 20 to 30% realistically in many institutes, and in fewer numbers a little more than that as well. uh, then comes the on-campus earning option. So scholarships are just one part of what you got. Then there are TA, which is teaching assistantship. There's an RA, which is a research assistantship. There are on-campus CPT kind of opportunities to earn money during the summers or during the breaks. And all of this further take down or pay for the cost of living, the $10,000 that I said additionally, right? I was, for example, a RA for my first semester, and that covered up, let's say, only my cost of living. The second semester I was there, I actually, my professor liked the kind of work I was doing, and he said, I would be willing to sponsor 70% of your scholarship, I mean, tuition fee as a scholarship. And then the remaining 30% is something I earned over the summer working in a corporate out there, right? So by the
Yes, do you
time,
also, sorry, do you
yeah,
also want to share your educational background so that people know what
yes,
you've done?
yeah, sure. So from an educational background perspective, I studied in the US for my master's in computer science. This was about 18 years ago, close to 17, 18 years ago. And after that's when and I went to Johns Hopkins University, which is ranked in the top 15 in the US. My major there was one was computer science, but I was very deeply interested in healthcare informatics, bioinformatics, and stuff like that. But eventually, my career path took me into a completely different direction because I landed up interning with Bloomberg, which is one of the best financial data providers in the world, or the best financial data provider in the world. And then it took me from my interest in applying computer science to healthcare problems to applying computer science in financial problems. So I was kind of like working on the fintech side of things for a very long time. Then I came back to India about 10 years, close to 10 years ago. I've been worked with Bloomberg again for some time, worked with Crystal in India, and then eventually plunged into doing edtech and educational consulting for college as well as bachelor's aspirants, like high school aspirants and MBA aspirants as well, to see that same inflection points in their career to help them grow the same way, right? So yeah, that's going back in time and telling you about how I managed to bring my cost of education down. If you ask me how much money did I pay for my entire cost of education, I paid probably for to study internationally. I ended up paying less than 7-8 lakh rupees, because except for the first semester where I really paid my tuition fee, uh, I did not have to pay a whole lot, because after that I ended up getting a RATA scholarship, on-campus earnings. So the whole cost of education went down from 40 plus lakhs at that point in time for 2 years Today it's 30, 40 lakhs a year now, of course, given the inflation rates. But from that time it was 40 lakhs a year to spending only about 7, 8 lakhs or so. So actually it's really 20% of what my family intended to spend at that point in time. And then lastly and most importantly, I think it is a salary post graduation that covers the cost of any educational spend that you had. So I had the opportunity of going to a great college, getting into a decent company, and companies were vying for my unlike some of the colleges in India where you might graduate, you'll see it's a struggle sometimes to get into a good corporate role with a well-paying salary unless you're IIT or IIM, and that kind of tag is not somebody can easily get into. The same way, I would not undermine the US or the UK institutions, but at least the capability to pay decent salaries in dollar terms and in pound terms and euro terms is much higher, which makes it easy to repay any loans that you might take to sponsor your education. And your family sometimes has taken that risk of sending you abroad. They really need to see that you are able to get a job, which means you really need to focus in terms of getting into only, and I say this again, is only the top 100 ranked programs in the world, or the top 70 ranked programs in the world. Getting into other programs may not necessarily be very beneficial. All right. Yes. Okay. I can speak a little louder. I see some message coming. So, yes, I will try to speak a bit louder. Uh, All right. So with that, I think the money aspect, again, going back, the salary post graduation. How much was my salary compared to my tuition fee that I paid? The first year of my salary post tax, the amount of money I earned, even if I did not receive the scholarship, it would have covered the cost of tuition for almost 1 year in by working for 1 year, right? From the just the savings. So my salary minus my cost of living in the city where I would have had a job, minus the taxes that I would have to pay, whatever savings I would have left out was equivalent to me having repaid that money back in terms of 1 year of education or tuition fees that I would have had to incur. So which means if you're really working for 2 or 3 years in the country post graduation, you would have anyways paid up the entire cost of your education in most instances, right? And this I'm giving as a little bit of a rule of thumb, because most institutes, like for example in the United States, the minimum salary for a master's graduate generally starts at 65,000 US dollars. The average tuition fee, as I said, for most, and I said the minimum salary, by the way, and the average tuition fee is more like 35 to $40,000, which means that if from $65,000 you had to, spend on cost of living, spend on taxes, you would still have about $30,000 left over, is what I would think, or $25,000 for most students at a minimum, and that would cover a significant proportion of their tuition fee any which ways, right? And that 65,000 is, again, as I said, a minimum salary that most people can expect. I know good schools will start, like, the postmaster salaries started really good, like 85, $90,000 and stuff, right? As per today's rates, right? Like, not, I'm talking way back then, even 10 years ago, the salary started at $65,000. So that's just a little bit of a aspect that you need to know. That is international education really expensive? That depends on you. It depends on your financial situation a little bit. Depends on how hard you're ready to work to get a good test score so that you get the scholarship. How hard are you thinking about going abroad and building the right profile so that you can land up with a good scholarship again? Is your financial situation requiring you to take a loan? If yes, what are your opportunities to pay that loan back, either in terms of post graduation, like which college you pick needs to be able to be something that the person, the bank that is giving you that loan, should be able to see the visibility that this guy will land up with a job probably after getting into that program, right? If I say that somebody's getting into IIT and I tell a bank, sponsor this guy's education, it's very easy for them to say, yes, we will sponsor his education. When I tell them some unknown institute in the middle of India somewhere, right, which no bank has necessarily heard of, they would be unwilling to sponsor the education fees for that institution because they do not know what the post graduation options are for the student, right? So keep that in mind when you're preparing yourself for your profile, for your tests, and eventually in terms of selecting the right institute, right? So with that, I'll go to the next slide, which is, let's talk about the local experiences. Right now, there are a lot of discussions that you would have done with your with your seniors, with your friends, with folks in your community who would have gone abroad. That would tell you like, hey, I had this challenge or I had that challenge. When it comes to safety, you would have heard about mugging incidents. When it comes to food, everybody will talk like, ghar ka khana, maa ke haath ki dal. All of that is extremely, these are things that we are really going to miss in general, right? Like food and stuff. Uh, and extreme weather, right? Like extreme weather is there in so many places. If you land up going to Canada, the kind of harsh winters that you might land up seeing, or if you go to California, the kind of forest fire issues in and around certain areas. So each one, each country, like London is permanently, or not permanently, but is usually drenched most of the time, due to unpredictable showers. There are weather conditions everywhere in the world and probably in the cities that you live in today as well. But uh, is weather a reason to not go abroad? I would say no, right? Because extreme weather is there everywhere. Climate change is an issue that we all hear about every single day, and it's there to stay. And I think extreme weather will continue in all parts of the world. But that said, with it, you have the capability to deal with that weather, and prepare yourself accordingly, right? Because harsh winters do take a toll both physically as well as mentally, right? I think because your ability to step out, meet people, do things, all gets crimped a little bit, right? The second one is the safety issue, right? And I think parents really worry that, yeah, mera, my one and only child, or even if it's not the one and only child, but the point is that, parents really worry that, the institute that we send them to, what are the safety norms, or, how safe are they in that country, right? Your parents are very unlikely to send you into countries which are at war, or countries where there are, problems. Like, for example, this year we have seen a dramatic reduction in the number of students aspiring to go into Chinese colleges. Until 2019, that was not the situation. Until 2019, people really wanted to go to China because it gave them that comfort of being in a global power hub where great companies were there, right? Like, I had friends who worked at Alibaba and at Tencent and stuff, who really, and they're working in Beijing and Shanghai, was not considered unsafe. Today, that could be considered unsafe given India and China have had issues at the border, right? So all these things put a little bit of a selection or a filter criteria, if anything, on your universities, but that's about it. Locals and, I mean, safety in general, of course, mugging incidents do happen. You need to keep your eyes and ears open. Very unlikely. I think the chance of a mugging incident happening is the same chance of a mugging incident probably happening in Delhi or in, Bangalore for that matter. Because if you don't keep your eyes and ears open and you're walking alone at night, it's the same situation, right? There are, of course, pockets of unrest even within the US. For example, if you saw the Black Lives Matter protests or the Trump protest in Washington, D.C., there could be any issue that could happen, either political, geographical, whatever. But I don't think, again, these things are happening in India today equally. And I see, I think, in fact, women's safety in other parts of the world is actually much better handled than in India as well, right? So for that matter, I would say actually safety is should not be a top concern. But yeah, I mean, keeping basic safeguards and checks is important, right? Locals and cohort is the other aspect about local experiences, is that you need to be able to, start feeling comfortable working and living with multicultural people. Locals will definitely be part of the culture. So if you end up going and studying in France, you'll end up going and studying in Germany, they'll be speaking the local language. You need to adapt to the local language a little bit, of course. Even though your lectures will be in English, even though your curriculum is all in English, dealing with locals needs to be something that you have to be open to. So this comes down to your adaptability, and adaptability is a real skill. Today you have come into a college where you've landed up meeting people from so many different high schools and coming together, and you've adapted really well because you might have a common cultural thread. uh, while in other places you might not even have that cultural thread. You need to find something else which you guys bond over. It could be movies, it could be Hollywood movies, it could be bonding over music, it could be bonding over anything else, or even sports, right? Like football. And I think people really bond over other things, which is why locals and cohort is something that you have to learn to adapt yourself and become comfortable with. And of course, language is just one small part of that, which anyways comes at the last point. But language is also again part of that adaptability angle, where things might not happen in your local language. Understanding, and picking that up, having that multilingual capability also really helps in job hunting down the road. So picking up the local language is a great skill to do. You don't need to study that in order to get into the program, but once you are there, you better learn it in the 2 years that you are there, right, or the 4 years that you're there. And food is, I think, anything that unites everybody in India is food, or anybody across the world is food, and you can have discussions on food all day long. But there are restaurants, Indian restaurants, Indian food chains, Indian food supplies are available in almost every major city. And most good colleges where a good number of Indian students go, they will all have some Indian or Pakistani food store offering you the same kind of foods, that are available in your local supermarket. So from Maggie noodles to anything that you crave for out here, even the chocolate or the perk or whatever you crave for will all be available in most places, right? So I was in Baltimore, which is about 100 miles outside of DC, and the nearest food store from my apartment was literally less than 2 kilometers away in terms of getting all my local food supplies. So so it's that close by, so you really don't need to worry too much. You will get enough food options. And yes, you will still miss your home cooked food. Cooking is not something you guys might be used to, but it's fun, right? Especially when you live in a multicultural household with roommates from multiple countries and taking turns to cook food, it'll be a great experience for sure, right? So my roommate, for example, was a local American, and he used to cook what his mother had taught him, which was all Christmassy. Christmas was the time we used to make him do the most cooking, and we used to do it for Diwali. So it just helps, right? So getting used to cooking international cuisines will become part of your living out there. Uh, all right. So moving on to the next part, right, which is the more untalked part about, which is feelings, right? And I think the number one feeling that everybody struggles with, and this is something you guys will all struggle with as well, and pretty much every student has struggled with this, is homesickness or loneliness. And this will happen because you suddenly land up plunging yourself, unless you have a best friend coming to the same college as you do, you're going to have to make new friends. And to make new friends is not necessarily easy, or not everybody feels as comfortable making new friends. So there'll be pockets of loneliness. You'll miss your own people at home, and does no amount of Zoom or FaceTime can probably fill that emptiness at times. I think this is something you guys need to know and be aware of. I think awareness of the fact that I will feel like this, and maybe somebody else who feels like that, right? Start building up an ecosystem of supporting others in these times, and you will of course also find support in such times as well. And I think this comes very commonly because there are events in the house, right? Like, let's say the loss of a family member, or a event in the family, a wedding where everybody else has got together. And if you are a person who really enjoyed these things, you will really start feeling like, yeah, I wish I was home at this point in time. And being able to celebrate that event, or being able to participate in that event, right? Or if you're own one of your family members, for example, today with COVID times, if a family member had got COVID and you are there, you feel that feeling of helplessness. I can't help them. And to struggle with seeing some family member get COVID would have been like disastrous for some people, right? So, but that is the truth. That is the honest truth about feelings, is such that it's only awareness, right? And there is of course help. There is help available in the colleges, which I think you need to learn to deal with, right? So a lot of people are worried. Some students I talk to, yeah, I feel I've never left my house, and I've always stayed with my family, and I don't know if I'll be able to adapt there. And it's not about adapting. It's definitely not about adapting in this case. Here it is more about being aware that you will feel like this, and taking that bold step to be independent. Because the longer Indians and a lot of other cultures is so used to staying with family for the longest period, that independence is not there. And this is so important in jobs, because there'll be nobody to help you make your decisions for you. Then you will always become dependent on somebody to make your decisions. So more importantly, from I'm telling you this more from an a job or a future job readiness perspective, you need to learn to be independent. This homesickness and loneliness is just going to strengthen your resolve that I can do this myself. I am okay. And in Amir Khan's words, all is well, per se, right? So you need to be able to say that I'm going to be able to come out of this and back yourself up. The next thing is a little bit of anxiety about job search that I think eats up people. No internships. Papa ghar pe internship nahi mili. How will I pay for the fees? Dad is worried. You are worried. Job is not coming by. Nobody's ready to sponsor a visa. This takes time. Okay, it doesn't happen like on the just because your friend who's in the college with you got in into Microsoft or into Amazon or into some other decent name doesn't mean you will crack the exact same place. Eventually, every university picks two, three, four students from a cohort. Not university, sorry. Every corporate picks two, three, four students from a cohort, and then there are so many other employers who come. But then there are rounds of employment. Just the way today in your own colleges, you'll see that multiple place for placements. You'll see there's a day one, day zero, day two kind of companies coming through. Out there, there might not be a day zero, day one, day two concept. There are career fairs, of course, but at the same time you have to network, and networking with alumni is the best way to land up with a job out there. So unlike Indian placement cells where they interact with corporates, and you'll end up getting a lot of offers or opportunities through your existing placement cell. Out there, placement cells and career centers do exist, but a lot of it happens over networking. A lot of it happens over drinks, right? So there are alumni meets, and you might want to be an organizer for the alumni meet, become friends and pally with them, and learn to network better in order to land up with a job search earlier up in the day. Sorry, I would request people who just kind of annotated stuff to avoid that. I haven't unfortunately stopped the annotations, but I wasn't expecting that. All right. Okay. Uh, yeah, Mohak, I'll just put out that for those of you who haven't filled out the registration form, it would be great if you can just fill it on the Google Forms. It would be helpful for us to, reach out to you, share content with you if you guys would be interested in that, and keep you updated in terms of the new changes in the international education space, right? So if you haven't filled out the form, please do that, right? All right, coming back to long distance relationships. Sorry, let me finish up on the job search. Most students who have gone abroad, and many of my own applicants, I would say 90% or so would have found a job within the first 3 months of graduation. All right. About 10% will struggle a bit longer, or they might have to come back as well. That is the risk we all take. I hate it when somebody says there's a 100% job guarantee. It is not. There are 10% chances because there are things like COVID that could happen. There are things like a disastrous crash that could happen, or there could be visa related issues, or maybe you just didn't build the skills. It could be any of these factors or all of these factors. And that is why there will be anxiety about job search, but within 3 months it will go away and you will be safe. And most people land up on their feet. Again, it's about backing yourself up, right? Lastly, long distance relationships. Do they survive? I have a boyfriend, I have a girlfriend. They are going to XYZ college. I would like to also go to XYZ college. Not going to happen very likely. I don't think, very rarely do I see people in relationships landing up at the same college. Getting used to long distance relationships may be tough. This is the honest reality. It is a very emotional journey. To have a long distance relationships work out is a matter of chance. I have seen things work out as well as not work out. So it could flip either way. But yeah, I mean, being mindful, again, being aware, knowing this, having honest conversations with your, partner, and doing that discussion, saying that, hey, is this thing going to work out or not? Or, you know, 2 years, 2 years to stay apart, and managing to continue a relationship on Zoom and FaceTime may take its toll on everything, right? But that said, there are people who've done that, and they find out ways or means, right? If you have somebody who's in New York and somebody who's in Boston, it's a 4 hour drive away. It'll be easier to meet pretty much every alternate month, if not more often. But if you are in London and you are somebody's in Singapore, yeah, you can kind of forget it. You're going to meet like once a year probably, right? So those are the honest realities of life in terms of international education. But then you're at a stage where you have to make that choice, right? Saying that, hey, what is good for my career? What is how do I balance my career with my relationships? And eventually, what decisions do I make in terms of the geography that I pick based on some of these reasons as well, right? So I think getting an awareness about the feelings that you will feel over that journey, and being able to deal with that, or getting mentally ready today. Many of you are in the first year, getting mentally ready in terms of saying that, yes, I want to do this, And yes, I would like to be independent and not be, only one, the financial independence, as well as the just the living independence of having to live by self is definitely a liberating experience. And I think anybody who's lived abroad and studied abroad will tell you that, that was an inflection point in their journey. It definitely changed them to become, to lead more satisfying careers and to lead more satisfying lives in general, right? I think moving on, these are why I would say these are the top five reasons why I would encourage people to study abroad. Uh, Number one, go experience the world. There is no other way to do that, right? If you travel for a month also outside and live, from a hotel to a hotel, that is not experiencing the world. Live local, eat local, see the world from the local person's lens, travel by the local bus, and experience things like in the local supermarket, to shopping by yourself, to living by yourself, to paying your own expenses. That is what I mean by experiencing the world. I think it is a must do, and there is no better way to do it. I mean, some people don't study abroad. What do? They take sabbaticals in their career at a later point and then travel the world and live out of a backpack and try to do these kind of things later on in life. But education itself is a world apart, and I think uh, you know uh, there are great opportunities to interact with a lot of people from different cultures all in one place, which is the college, right? The second reason, which is most important, is the quality of research and education. The kind of facilities that India offers and the kind of facilities that are offered internationally are very, very different when it comes to research. Today, uh, there are so many trials for vaccines and other things happening around the world. You're hearing about the kind of top-notch research, as well as the kind of mind, the talents that is going into that, right? Johns Hopkins, which is my own college, is at the forefront of the entire COVID management task force, or the COVID task force for the US specifically. And these guys are excellent when it comes to researching and finding solutions, having the facilities to test, the apparatus, the labs, the technologies, the people, the faculty, the grants, everything is all available in these institutes. And this is why today, for example, my own professor, and I like taking this example, he received a grant of close to $15 million 15 years ago from the Department of Health in the US to sponsor genomic research, right? And gene sequencing research. And while he did gene sequencing, my role in his lab was really to do computer programming for helping that gene sequencing to do it a little bit quicker and whatnot. And there are other people like that. Some people came with stats backgrounds, I mean statistics backgrounds, and some people came with mathematics backgrounds and whatnot. But they were all part of the task force to do genomic research eventually, right? So you'll find enough and more people having that grant money from governments. So it's really well funded as well. In India, it's all self-funded. Universities have to depend on self-funds, which kind of puts a crimp to a large extent, in the good colleges. But or it's alumni funded, right? So at least research and education is definitely top notch. Third is personal development. I think I already touched upon that. Becoming a more confident, a more a skilled leader or a skilled negotiator. These are things that you learn to do really well when you are working and studying in international destinations, right? Your own capability to live independently, make decisions independently. These are again real good personal development goals. Very difficult to do that in India, where continuously you're being told by uh, tutors. By the way, there's no tutoring or very little tutoring that happens in the US. You'll be all by yourself, right? And copy paste culture is kind of zero, which means again it learns to make you think on your by yourself and deliver results by yourself. More importantly, personal development has become a real good strong reason, I think, for parents also now to consider sending their kids, because they want them to be able to stand up on their own feet. They've realized that मेरा बच्चा मेरे पे बहुत ज़्यादा dependent हो गया. He's become too dependent. I'm worried that financially also he's become dependent on me, and that personal development is another opportunity. Again, I brings that in the last point where I've mentioned independence as well. But I think personal development and independence will kind of go hand in hand to some extent. And in the middle is career opportunities. I think career opportunities is the number one reason why many of us even start thinking about going abroad, right? That what are my what are my what are my opportunities to apply the skills that I've learned or the knowledge that I've gathered over the last 15, 16 years or 17 years by the time you finish your masters in a real corporate environment. And there are so many different fields. I mean, there are insane number of fields that are available, right? Think of a name like a complicated thing, like, as I said, if somebody wants to do medical informatics, there's probably no program in India, but there'll definitely be a program internationally, right? If you wanted to do a program like AI in education, there will be a program internationally. And this kind of exposes you, and there'll be faculty doing research. And these kind of opportunities are very, very specific sometimes, and they let you do that. But of course, more importantly, most of us start thinking like, yeah, I need a great job that will pay me well. Of course, that is important. A job that pays you well, very important. I do not deny that. But a career is not only about how much you get paid. A career is about what you learned and how you're able to learn further in applying your skills at the job and improving other skills that you get over time, right? Very often, I used to make the same mistake as you did, or you might make, which is going and picking the highest paying job, right? I think somebody pays me $80,000, somebody pays me $75,000. I'll take the $80,000 job. But you need to also then look necessarily at what each job offers, right? This is a tech job, this is a management job. And in management, my capability to grow, for example, will be better than being in a tech role where I'll become an individual contributor. So, are you a leader? Are you an individual contributor? That should decide what, based on your skills and based on what you really care about, should decide what kind of outcomes you desire from a career perspective, right? Now, with that, I think I want to kind of touch up on a couple of things, which is the timelines to study abroad. Many of you, I noticed, were in the first year or the second year of of your current program, and this is the right time for you to start thinking about the prerequisites to study abroad, right? Because you really apply for colleges or universities internationally only in your final year. So in the prior years, you need to first start thinking about two things. One is the prerequisites. What are the two prerequisites? The first prerequisite is having a standardized test score. In your case, it'll be GRE or GMAT for most of you. Could be other tests as well, depending on what career you want to pursue, right? The uh, the GRE and the GMAT test preparation is something that requires good focus and a good strong number out there. For example, a good number, if I had to put a quick number in my mind, a number above 315 to 320 is a good number to target on the GRE. About 700 odd on the GMAT is a good number to target, right? And these numbers, why? Because it opens up more opportunities to get scholarships down the road, right? That is why I'm mentioning these two numbers. But you need to start planning your journey. If you're serious about studying abroad, first do some research. Think, in the first year, you're probably just researching and Googling and identifying information. But the next thing you need to do along with all of that is, along with the test prep, is profile development. And profile development, I don't know if people know what profile development even means, but your profile is a mix of three things: your academics, your extracurriculars, and your skills, right? Your academics is clear to you. It's the marks that you get, your test marks, your college marks, anything that you do academically, which could be part of your curriculum, right? Research work. Non-academics or extracurriculars is clearly sports, debates, anything which is not really part of your, and debating is actually more on the skill side, but anything extracurricular could be additional courses that you took on Coursera or Udemy or whatever. That could also be part of your extracurriculars. And they have to be relevant to your long-term thought process, of course, right? Like if you're trying to become a visual or a VFX artist, and you are a technology guy, for example, today, you might want to take up some creative courses. Or if you are an economics background today and you strive for getting into fintech space, maybe you take a couple of programming courses, right? Or if you are, thinking about getting into, quantitative social sciences or something even more funkier and new age, you need to learn about, sociology, or you can pick up courses on politics in general or whatever, right? International world politics and stuff. So you need to learn the right things that will add to your repertoire in terms of what your long-term goals are. That is part of the extracurricular or the non-academic profile development. And finally, the skills that you build, which is generally through internships, which is generally through structured mentoring. And when I say structured mentoring, you need to speak to somebody who's in the industry that you want to get into. And this is what, again, by the way, Lilacbuds does really well, which is my company, right? We really pride ourselves in the kind of structured mentoring that we allow students to be part of. So our mentors are people who have actually studied in some of the best institutions and who have come from great corporate backgrounds as well, right? Like we have mentors who are from Tesla and Amazon and investment banks like Evercore and Everstone and JP Morgan and stuff. They are all part of our network, right? Mohak today is from Oxford and he did his own startup. So we've got entrepreneurs as well who are part of the entire team today in terms of mentoring. And what we do through the structured mentoring program is to help you build the right profile. So when the time comes to apply abroad, your chance of scholarships is really high. Your chance of getting we can't do much about your academic performance. That's all you. We can help. We do help you with tutoring. We do have a tutoring arm where we help you with getting connected with the right personal tutors who use analytics to kind of drive your what we call bespoke tutoring, which is customized to you. There are two kinds of, I mean, again, this is just a little bit of how we work versus how the industry works today. Is Lilac Buds' real strength, again, is analytics driven tutoring, which means your tutor is given a dashboard, not you, you of course as well, but the tutor is given a dashboard to say these are the strengths and weaknesses for student 1, student 2, student 3. These are the areas that you need to focus on and help them improve their scores. Unlike the MOOC format where it is a massive open online course where everybody is given the same content, there's no personalization, and it's a do it yourself mode, right? Now, of course, those do it yourself courses are cheaper, which is why the whole MOOC concept is to make it affordable. But we are not focused on the affordable. We are focused on the return on the investment, which is by taking the tuitions. If I can push your score up by 10% or 15%, I have now opened you up to an international scholarship, which you would have not got by studying yourself. So when I recommend students to study with a tutor, it's mainly with the thought process that we want to improve your chances of a scholarship and nothing else, right? If you feel comfortable studying by yourself and getting a great score, by all means do it. But if you feel that I'm struggling, I don't want to spend too much because I think it's a lot of money, the difference is probably 20, 30,000 between taking personalized tutoring versus just doing it yourself. So if one costs maybe 30,000, the other will cost 50,000, something like that. But the point is that 20,000 of additional investment from your end will translate to probably 5 to 6 lakhs of benefits in a year's time if you get a good score. So that's the way we look at practicing and preparing and having the prerequisites, which is prepare early for the tests, get a great score, build your profile right, speak to alumni from the colleges or speak to people with similar backgrounds like you, learn which internships to take up, why to do, what to do in an internship, how to build your skills, what kind of other courses will help your potential of getting a program, and then applying that in today's context. Yeah. So this, I believe, is the timeline that you're looking at, which is start prepping today. By the end of your second to last year, right, you should have given your tests, right? So, for example, if you are graduating in 2021, by July of 2020 or June of 2020, you should have definitely given your standardized tests, right? If you're graduating in if you're graduating in May of 2022, by July of 2021, you should have given your test. Similarly, if you're graduating in May of 2023, by July of 2022, you need to have given your tests. Your structured mentoring should start actually a whole year earlier. So we recommend that if structured mentoring starts as well by January. If you're graduating in July of 2022 or May of 2022, sorry, you need to start by again May of 2021 in terms of structured mentoring as well, right? Because by the time we apply, you will only have 6 to 8 months to apply, and your internship will really be in that May, June, July period, which we really want to make sure is really well done. You can even start structured mentoring earlier because that is something that will really value. And that's something that will increase your value or your ability to project yourself to a international institute. And yeah, I think with that, in the last year, if you're in the final year of your program, you're by December of that year, when you're in your final year, you'll most likely have to make all your applications. You will start hearing back from the universities by March of the year in which you're graduating, so that just by the time you graduate, you already know where you are getting in. and you can then take your, it'll take time to get a visa processed and all the other things post that, right? Finances sorted and saying your goodbyes and stuff. But that is the broad timeline to keep in mind. So if you're in the first year, start thinking about test prep and start researching a little bit. If you're in the second year, you have to be studying hard for your test prep, making sure you're cracking the exams really. You can take it once or twice, but really study well and then take it up. And after you finished your tests, the third stage is the actual profile development that goes alongside with the test in the second year. And in the final year is where you're just focusing on building the right essays and the letters of recommendation, and projecting yourself as the ideal candidate for those best programs. And remember, if you don't get into the top 50 or top 60 best programs, it's better to not go sometimes to study abroad, because you might not see the return on your investment in terms of the 50 lakhs or 60 lakhs that your family spent, unless you are really well to do and you think like, hey, it's okay if I don't get the money back. I really want to grow for the experience. Great, do that, right? But if you think like, it's important for me to also have a career in that international destination, really, then you need to focus on only the top 100 universities globally. Don't kind of, go all over the place. Yeah. And that's what, again, Lilac Buds only does that, right? We do not generally go below the top 100 at all, unless it's like a real extreme situation where the student has asked us, like, yeah, apply for us here, help us apply here as well. But because we know that, what we want for you at the end of the day is strong career opportunities. So yeah, I think I'm going to take a quick pause. I would like everybody to, now put in some questions before I go further into my conversation. So just the time that you can start putting in some stuff in the chat. You can either mark it to me or to Mohak. So I think when you go in the chat, yeah, okay, I'm seeing Ingita has asked a question, Smriti has asked a question. So yeah, I mean, Mohak, you can probably tandem with me on some of these questions. But yeah, if you want to post it to everyone, that's fine. If you want to post it only to me, or not to me, sorry, to Mohak, right, that would also be good, right? So either mark it to Mohak or to me, and we'll start taking up those questions quickly. All right.
Just a quick pointer. Can you make me a host as well? Because they can only send you a personalized message to the host right now
Okay.
based on the settings.
Hold on. All right. I'll make you a co-host. Sorry, guys. I'll just make Mohawk the co-host. How do I do this? Participants and Mohawk. Yep. Or make host. Okay. Mohawk, you're the host now. All right. All right, guys. I think yeah, you can send it to Mohawk now that he's the co-host. And I'm going to keep moving on. Feel free to ask any question that's in your mind, whatever stage you are at. It can be specific to you, or specific to the year, or do any question that you have at all, right? In context, of course, in context with international education. All right. So what do? We do these four things more specifically, as I said, profile evaluation. This is the first step. If you want to continue your journey with Lilac Buds, first thing we will want to do with you is evaluating a profile to assess, how strong a candidate you are. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are the gaps in your profile? How do we fill those gaps, and so on. There's a little less light in here. Just hold on. Yeah. Okay. All right. So mentoring is the other thing, as I said, that we really pride ourselves in, is the capability to put you in touch with a mentor who has got a journey just like you, right? Like today, we seek advice from people who have the capability to give us the right advice, given that they've walked in your shoes before. So if I can tell you that, hey, I have a student on my panel who has studied in Delhi, from a program similar to yours, and also then went abroad and studied at Carnegie Mellon University in the US. Is he somebody who you would probably seek guidance from? The answer is very likely yes, rather than seeking guidance from a counselor who understands your profile a little bit but has never studied abroad themselves, or has never really understood the process of actually adjusting and adapting to the country, or having to find a job in that country. Everything for them is hearsay. And that is the difference between mentoring, because a mentor generally has walked in your shoes, can guide you correctly, can understand the pain points that you have, or the worries that you have, or the profile gaps that you have, and how to plug them correctly for the right way forward. So I think a mentoring is such an underrated uh, underrated thing in colleges that sometimes I do feel bad that why mentoring has not become a important part of college culture today, where every student should get mentored, irrespective of whether they want to stay in India or go abroad. But given that our focus is not to help you find jobs here, but to more get you admitted and secure admissions to a great internationally reputed institution, we are focusing on mentors who have that kind of repertoire, where they come from top schools, they're alumni of top schools, and are now working for great companies internationally or in India, right? So that's mentoring. Admission support and goal clarity are the other two aspects. Admission support is everything that is about your application, whether it's your statement of purpose, very important when you're trying to apply for a master's in STEM program, essays for your management programs, for finance programs, or why do you want to study at this college, and to be able to bring out your journey and why the faculty or the program there really makes sense to you and why you want to study there. This is a very important aspect. Today in India, the education system is marks aa gaye hai, so you will be admitted. There it is not like that. Even if you have a great GRE score, you need to be able to communicate why you want to study at that program, or if you have a great GMAT score, why somebody else is willing to recommend you into that program. So we need great letters of recommendation, and strategies around letters of recommendation. Who will write your letter of recommendation? Will it be your boss? Will it be some family member? Will it be an alum of that school? It could be the mentor whom you have worked with, which makes it even more relevant, right? Because these mentors come from those kind of backgrounds. And finally is the goal clarity. Like eventually, what do you want to do post your graduation? What are the things that you really care about? And keeping those goals in mind, we want to structure your journey and help you, onto the path of a great career. So I think this is where our focus is. Our focus is really in building that whole profile. We are, I would say that we really pride ourselves in the kind of quality that we offer. And more than that, our students are more than happy, right? Our students are really the ones who are referring all the new students to us. And opportunities like this to interact with college students like you always make us make spread the word a little bit more about Lilacbuds. So post today's session, of course, do reach out to us on our Facebook handle, LinkedIn handles, Instagram handles as well, and make sure that you can connect with us uh, even post the program, right? And I think this is probably okay. My second last slide, I think, and this is about just yeah. This goes into details about what we do, the breadth and the depth of our entire admissions consulting practice. What everything that you can think of, right? About which program, which college, what is my profile? Am I ready for an MBA? Not ready for an MBA? Why not an MBA? Why do a master's in management, for example? Your resumes, your SOPs, pretty much everything that is required. We cover every single thing all the way down till visa application support as well, right? Even though it's not really our key thing that we do, but if we've helped a student all the way to get an admission, the least we could do then is make sure that he gets the visa as well, right? So we do support our students on pretty much every aspect of the international education journey, and I think this slide lays out everything in detail. And yeah, these are our success stories. I think that is the number one reason why you are talking to me today. This is where we feel pride about. These are the colleges where our students have gone.